The galaxy was wide and restless, filled with hundreds of empires, councils, and kingdoms that never seemed to agree on anything. For centuries, wars had been fought in the skies above worlds. Fleets had clashed in the cold dark of space, and soldiers had spilled their lives for the pride of rulers who never left their palaces. To most civilizations, this endless fighting was simply the natural order of things. Among the greater powers, the Varan Dominion, the Arlek Coalition, the Silithian Syndicate, war was like a game of chess. Systems changed hands every few decades. Planets were conquered and freed in repeating cycles, but nothing truly changed. Armies grew, armies fell, and life went on. Then came the whispers. At first, they were dismissed as the usual rumors of frightened scouts. Pilots spoke of a black ship that swallowed stars in its shadow. Others told of a craft so large it could not be measured by scanners, its hull darker than the void itself. Some said it was unmoving, like a fortress hidden at the edge of human space. Some swore it had moved through their sectors in silence, never firing, never answering hails. The name of the ship was not known. The only truth was that it belonged to the humans. To the older races, humanity was still a curiosity. Their homeworld was young in galactic terms. Their colonies few compared to ancient powers whose civilizations stretched back tens of thousands of years. Many alien leaders called humans reckless, too bold for their own survival. They were seen as a stubborn people who expanded faster than their technology should have allowed, and yet they endured where others would have fallen. Still, no one truly feared them. Not yet humans, a child race. The Varan warlords would laugh in their throne halls. They build ships with courage instead of wisdom. Their fleets burn bright but brief, the Silithian admirals said, their voices like flowing water. They are stars that flicker before fading, and yet those whispers kept spreading. Ships vanished near human borders. Patrols returned shaken, their reports confused and fragmented. Something was moving in the dark, something that belonged to Earth. The galaxy could not ignore it. On a trade station orbiting the neutral world of Kethor, diplomats gathered in uneasy silence. A merchant vessel had just docked, its crew pale and wide-eyed. They claimed to have seen it, the human warship. "It was like nothing I have ever laid eyes on," said the captain, her voice shaking. "It blocked the stars. My crew thought the night itself had fallen upon us, and then it passed. Not a single shot, not a single word, just silence." The hall buzzed with disbelief. Some shouted that it was impossible, that humans could never build such a craft. Others whispered that perhaps it was true, for no sensor logs could be faked so perfectly. The rumor spread faster than light. In marketplaces, in war councils, in the halls of kings, one phrase was repeated again and again. The humans have built a warship. But not everyone believed it. The Arlek Coalition, proud and defiant, mocked the idea. "Let them come," one of their generals said with a sneer. "If humans think they can frighten us with shadows, they will learn the cost of arrogance." Yet even as the laughter continued, commanders doubled their patrols near human space. Fleets were quietly repositioned. Scouts were ordered to keep watch on every border, because deep down, even the proudest leaders felt a quiet unease. Humanity was different. They were not the strongest, not the oldest, and not the most advanced. But they had something the galaxy could not explain, an ability to rise from disaster, to survive against odds that should have destroyed them. Every war they had faced, they had endured. Every challenge thrown at them, they had turned into a lesson. And now it seemed they had taken that lesson and shaped it into steel. The battlefield of the galaxy was changing, though few realized how quickly. For now the whispers were only rumors, shadows in the void. Yet shadows can stretch far and fear grows strongest in silence. Out in the dark, near the edge of human-controlled stars, the truth waited. A ship unlike any other rested in orbit above a barren world, its engines asleep, its black surface swallowing the starlight. No one outside humanity had seen its name engraved upon the hull, but when it moved, the galaxy would no longer laugh. And so, the whisper spread, quiet, unstoppable, like a storm before the thunder. The war in the Kelleran system had raged for almost a year. Two mighty forces, the Arlek Coalition and the Silithian Syndicate, clashed again and again over the world below, a planet rich with fuel and metals that could power fleets for centuries. On that day, the sky above Kalar burned. Thousands of ships filled the void. Bright streaks of plasma lit the darkness. Explosions rolled across space like thunder. scattering wreckage in every direction. The Silithians, with their sleek silver cruisers, pushed forward in tight formation. The Arleck fleet, sharp and angular, fought with brutal force, ramming enemy ships as often as firing weapons. Both sides believed victory was close. Both believed the other would soon break. Then the light dimmed. At first, it was only a shadow across the battlefield. Pilots thought a nearby star had flickered, or perhaps a planet's orbit had blocked the light, but the shadow grew larger, spreading until the brilliance of battle seemed drowned in night. "Adjust scanners," an Arleck commander barked. His crew obeyed, but the readings came back blank. "Nothing," he snapped. "Not nothing," his sensor officer whispered. "Something. Too large to measure." On the Silithian flagship, panic spread through the bridge. Their admiral stood tall, water-like skin shimmering under the lights, but his voice trembled. "It blots out the stars," he murmured. "What kind of vessel can do that?" Across the battlefield, ships slowed. Weapons fell silent. The war paused, not because peace was called, but because fear had stolen every thought. The warship had arrived. It drifted into the system with no haste, no warning. Its surface was blacker than space itself, swallowing every ray of light. It had no banners, no markings of pride like other fleets, only silence. Some whispered it was not a ship at all, but a moving planet. Its hull stretched so far that smaller vessels appeared like insects before it. Entire formations of cruisers fit within its shadow, vanishing into darkness as though the ship itself had erased them from the stars. The dreadnought Eternity. To the humans, it was a guardian. To the galaxy, it was a nightmare given form. On the battlefield, no one fired. Even the most reckless captains held their weapons steady, afraid to provoke whatever this thing might be. For a long, endless moment, the warship simply floated there, watching. Inside the Silithian flagship, the crew whispered among themselves. "Why doesn't it attack? Perhaps it is broken. Perhaps. It does not need to." On the Arleck side, a general snarled at his officers. "Do not let shadows frighten you. It is only a human trick, a shell to scare us. They could never build such a thing." But even as he shouted, his voice carried less strength than before. Across the system, transmissions began to spread. Civilian observers, traders, and hidden scouts all sent the same message back to their leaders. "It is real. The human warship is real." In the quiet, small details began to terrify the fleets. The ship gave off no standard energy signature. Its engines, if they existed, were silent. Weapons ports could not be counted, because the surface itself seemed to shift like a horizon of endless black metal. Worse still, no signal came from it. No greeting, no warning, no threat. The humans said nothing. The silence was heavier than 1,000 guns. The Arleck commander clenched his fists. Pride would not allow him to remain frozen. He ordered 3 cruisers forward, daring them to test the shadow. The small ships advanced, their scanners struggling to lock on the warship. Then they stopped. No one knew why. Their engines simply shut down, their weapons offline. The ships drifted powerless, caught in the shadow of the dreadnought. A moment later, their systems reawakened and they turned back without a single order. Not destroyed, not harmed, just silenced and returned. Fear rippled through both fleets. "This is no battle we can win," a Silithian officer whispered. "This is not a battle at all," another replied. For the first time in living memory, 2 enemy armadas ceased fighting in the middle of war. Commanders gave no orders. Crews waited, staring at the giant ship that darkened their stars. And then at last the silence broke. A transmission, clear and steady, filled every channel. It was in no alien tongue, but in a voice unmistakably human, calm, firm, carrying the weight of unshakable resolve. "This war spills into our borders. Enough." No more words followed, no demands, no threats. Only that single message. The warship turned slowly, its engines lighting for the first time. The glow was faint, yet the energy it radiated shook sensors across the system. Then, without firing a shot, it began to drift past the battlefield. No fleet followed. No one dared. The galaxy had frozen, watching a single ship move through the heavens. And for the first time in countless ages of war, silence ruled the battlefield. The Kalaran system remained quiet long after the human warship had passed. The Arleck and the Silithian fleets, once locked in furious battle, now floated aimlessly. Commanders gave no orders. Crews sat at their stations in silence, still shaken by the shadow that had crossed their stars. Across the galaxy, the story spread faster than light. Couriers carried recordings, witnesses told their tales, and every government replayed the same few words that had shaken two mighty fleets into silence. This war spills into our borders. Enough. The message was simple, yet it carried a weight no one could ignore. It was not shouted with arrogance nor whispered with weakness. It was spoken with a calm certainty, as though humanity had already decided the outcome. On distant worlds, leaders gathered in their halls to discuss the meaning of the message. The Arlek generals were furious. Their pride stung at the thought that humans had dared to interrupt their war. They presumed to command us? One roared, striking the table with his armored fist. A child race no older than 1,000 years in the stars dares to speak as though they rule the heavens. But even among the generals, unease spread. None could deny the silence that had fallen when the warship arrived. None could deny the strange power that had disabled their cruisers without a shot. The Silithians, in contrast, were thoughtful. Their admiral councils spoke in calm voices, as was their way, but there was tension beneath their words. This was no accident, one said. Humans did not send that ship by chance. They chose Kalar, a place where our fleets gathered, to make their presence known. Another added, they could have destroyed us all. They did not. That too is a message. Whispers turned to debates. Debates turned to arguments. Every empire tried to guess the same answer. What did humanity want? On Earth itself, within the great council chambers of the United Human Nations, the answer was clear. The leaders of humanity had long watched the galaxy's endless wars with growing concern. They had seen fleets move closer to their colonies, battles spilling over into neutral space. Refugees had begged for protection, and trade routes had been cut off by fighting. Humanity had warned the empires again and again to keep their wars away. But the galaxy had ignored them, and so the humans had built a ship that could not be ignored. The dreadnought Eternity was not meant to conquer. It was meant to stand as a line no one could cross. Its very presence was humanity's warning to the galaxy. Peace was no longer a request, it was a demand. Back in the Kalaran system, the commanders of the Arlek fleet met in secret. Their pride urged them to strike, to prove that humans could not intimidate them. One general argued fiercely, if we allow this, humanity will grow bold. They will tell us where we can fight, how we can rule. Today it is Kalar. Tomorrow it may be Arlek space itself. Others hesitated. And what if their ship cannot be defeated? What if more of them exist? The silence that followed was heavy. None wanted to be the first to test the strength of humanity's new weapon. Yet none wanted to appear weak before their rivals. Far away in Silithian territory, the councils reached a different conclusion. They believed humanity's warning was not a call to conquer, but to restrain. The humans do not wish for war, one elder said. They wish for peace, but they have shown that if pushed, they will not hesitate to enforce it. The Silithians began recalling ships from the border, unwilling to risk another confrontation. Still, pride burned bright among the other races. Some dismissed the humans as arrogant. Others believed the dreadnought must be a trick, its power exaggerated by fear. Plans formed in secret. Spies were sent to human space. Every empire wanted to know the truth. How many ships like the Eternity existed? Was it only one? Or an entire fleet? For now, the galaxy had only questions. Meanwhile, in the quiet halls of the Human Council, a single decision was made. The message at Kalar was only the beginning. Humanity would no longer remain silent while the galaxy tore itself apart. If the wars of the old empires threatened their borders, then humanity would stand as the shield, and if needed, the hammer. For centuries, the older races had laughed at humanity. They had called them reckless, stubborn, unrefined, but now the galaxy had seen their resolve, carved into steel and shadow. The warship had spoken not with guns but with silence, and silence had been louder than any battle cry. In every star system, on every world, the people of the galaxy whispered the same words. The humans warned us. Will we listen? The shadow of the dreadnought stretched far beyond Kalar, and though the ship itself was gone, its presence remained in the minds of all who had seen it. The galaxy had been given a choice: continue the endless wars and face the wrath of humanity, or lay down their arms before the storm arrived. Though many races hesitated, fear alone could not keep every empire from testing the humans. Pride was a powerful force, and pride often blinded leaders. Among them, the Arlek coalition burned with anger. Their generals had never forgiven the silence at Kalar. They could not accept that. Their great fleet had been stopped by a single ship that had not even fired a shot. They mock us, one Arlek commander shouted before his council. They believe their shadow is enough to frighten us into obedience. We are warriors. We do not bow to threats. And so, the Arlek prepared a challenge. A fleet of nearly 2,000 ships gathered at the edge of human space. Heavy cruisers, swift destroyers, and massive carriers stood ready. They were a storm of steel and fire, and their leaders believed that no single ship, no matter how large, could stand against them. The galaxy watched with held breath. Every empire sent spies and scouts to observe. Every council waited for news. Would humanity's dreadnought truly fight, or would the shadow vanish when faced with real force? The answer came quickly. From the dark edge of space, the dreadnought Eternity appeared once more. It moved slowly, but its presence swallowed the stars. Just as it had at Kalar, the Arlek fleet spread wide, their ships surrounding the human warship like hunters circling prey. Signal them, the Arlek admiral ordered. A message was sent, filled with mocking pride. You cannot frighten us with silence, humans. Today, the galaxy learns that you are not gods, but dust. The Eternity did not answer. The Arlek fleet opened fire. Thousands of beams and missiles streaked across the void, blazing like falling suns. Explosions blossomed against the warship's black hull. For a moment, the admirals cheered. For a moment, they believed the dreadnought could fall. Then the smoke cleared. The warship was untouched. Its hull shimmered faintly, as though the void itself had shielded it. Not a single scratch could be seen. On the Arlek flagship, silence fell. The admiral's voice trembled as he shouted for another volley. Again the fleet fired. Again the darkness swallowed every strike, and then at last the Eternity answered. From its surface light awoke. Lines of blue fire traced across its black armor, forming shapes too vast to comprehend. The energy glowed brighter, brighter, until it seemed a new star had been born in the void. One by one, ports opened along its hull. Weapons unlike any seen in the galaxy revealed themselves. A single shot fired, it was not loud nor messy. It was silent, a thin beam of white light that crossed the battlefield faster than thought. An Arlek cruiser vanished, not shattered into debris, but erased as though it had never existed. Another shot followed, and another ship was gone. Then another. Panic spread through the Arlek fleet. Thousands of weapons turned toward the dreadnought, but none found success. Every strike dissolved against its shield. Every missile fell apart before reaching its surface. The Eternity fired again. This time, entire squadrons disappeared, cut apart by sweeping beams of impossible precision. Carriers that had carried hundreds of fighters were gone in a blink, leaving only silence where they once had been. Within minutes, hundreds of ships were destroyed. The battlefield that had once burned with light now glowed only with the quiet fire of wreckage. On every channel, Arlek captains shouted in terror, "Our weapons are useless. It is unstoppable. Retreat! Retreat!" But retreat was not simple. The dreadnought's weapons reached across space with impossible range. Ships fleeing at full speed were struck down before they could escape. Every second, more of the proud fleet was erased. Still, the Eternity did not speak. It did not taunt. It did not rage. It simply moved calmly, steadily, as though guided by unshakable purpose. Finally, when nearly half the Arlek fleet had been destroyed, the firing ceased. The warship drifted forward, engines glowing faintly. Its voice filled the channels again, the same calm tone that had silenced Kalar. "You were warned. No more." And then it turned away, leaving the broken fleet behind. The survivors were too stunned to follow. They scattered, limping back to Arlek space with their tales of destruction. Their pride was shattered, their strength broken. The galaxy listened to their reports in awe and fear. No one had ever seen such power. No empire had ever possessed such a weapon. The Eternity had not fought like an army. It had fought like a force of nature. The message was clear. Humanity's patience was gone. Their demand for peace was not a request. It was law, and the galaxy, shaken and terrified, began to understand. Resisting humanity was not only foolish, it was impossible. The Arlek fleet never recovered from the battle. Out of nearly 2,000 ships, less than a third limped back to their homeworlds, their hulls broken, their pride shattered. Their commanders no longer spoke of human weakness. Their voices, once filled with arrogance, now trembled whenever the word human was mentioned. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. The witnesses told their stories. The recordings played again and again on every world. Billions watched as the impossible unfolded. A single warship standing against an armada and reducing it to ashes in minutes. The galaxy could not deny the truth any longer. Humanity was no longer a minor race. Humanity had entered the stage of the great powers, and they had arrived carrying a shadow larger than any empire had ever dared to dream. On Silithian worlds, people whispered in their marketplaces, "The humans warned us. They did not conquer the Arlek, but they could have. They want peace, but what if peace is only their word for control?" The Silithian Council debated endlessly. Some argued that humans were saviors, forcing the galaxy to end its endless wars. Others feared them, believing humanity had built a weapon too dangerous to exist. In the halls of the Varan Dominion, pride still clung to the warlords. But even their voices had grown quieter. No general wanted to be the next to challenge the eternity. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion reduced its raids, recalling fleets to defend its own borders instead of striking at neighbors. The galaxy was changing, but humanity did not celebrate. On Earth, the leaders of the United Human Nations met once more. There was no joy in their chambers, only a quiet, heavy understanding. "The galaxy will either fear us or follow us," one official said. "Fear will keep them cautious," another answered, "but it will not keep them peaceful forever." The council knew the truth. The dreadnought was not a permanent answer. It was a symbol, a reminder that humanity would no longer allow others to decide their fate. The eternity was not meant to conquer. It was meant to hold the line. Yet symbols could be misunderstood. Would the galaxy see humanity as guardians, or as tyrants waiting to rise? Meanwhile, out in the stars, the dreadnought Eternity drifted silently between systems. It did not fire again. It did not issue new warnings. Its very presence was enough. Wherever it appeared, battles stopped. Fleets scattered. No one dared to fight beneath its shadow. In one system, two smaller empires prepared to wage war over a mining colony. The moment the Eternity entered orbit, both sides withdrew without firing a shot. For the first time in generations, the colony remained untouched. The people there called it a miracle. In another sector, smugglers fled at the mere whisper that the warship was near. Entire routes once unsafe became clear again. Trade resumed, and worlds long starved of supplies found their docks full of ships once more. The galaxy was silent not because of peace treaties, but because of fear. And yet in that fear, peace bloomed. On the distant colonies of humanity, people looked to the skies with pride. For centuries, their kind had been dismissed as reckless and fragile. Now the galaxy spoke their name with awe. Children learned of the Eternity in schools not as a weapon of destruction, but as proof of what humanity could achieve when united. But not everyone was at ease. Spies still moved in the dark, searching for secrets. Rumors spread that humanity was building more dreadnoughts, that a fleet of giants slept in their hidden shipyards. Others whispered that the Eternity was only the first step, and that humanity planned to rule the stars. No proof was ever found. The truth remained hidden, known only to those who served aboard the great warship. They did not speak of its design, its power, or its origin. They followed their orders in silence, drifting from system to system like a shadow of warning. One thing was certain: no one dared to test them again. Years passed, and still the story of Kalar was told. Children of every species heard it in hushed voices. Traders repeated it in cantinas on faraway worlds. Soldiers remembered it before stepping onto battlefields, and each time, the ending was the same. The galaxy froze as humanity's warship darkened the heavens of the battlefield. For the first time in living memory, peace was not demanded by treaties or maintained by fragile alliances. It was kept by silence. The silence of a single ship that reminded the galaxy what humanity could become when pushed too far. The dreadnought had not conquered. It had not enslaved. It had simply stood, unshaken, unbroken, until the galaxy itself chose to step back. And so, the age of humanity began not with fire, but with shadow.